I know that's the only thing is absurd.
It's not, it's just next door, but it's not like you don't.
Thank you so much. Do you need swag?
Yeah.
You want to put it off that. Feel like it's on. Where? You're stylish. My kids wear their white tennis shoes everywhere. Yeah. I'm actually seeing original. So you'll see me at the. I'm bringing Patricia. Are you? I am. Excuse me. We'll walk somebody else. No, right. Yeah, I mean. Did you understand my email from the
Silver. Oh, I see.
All right, ready, council? Counselor? Yeah, ready. Look. Deputy Chief's ready to bounce out of the chair. All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you for all the veterans. Do you have any veterans in the audience today? Any vets here today? Well, please tell your family members Happy Veterans Day and thank you for your service. So if we can all please rise and we'll pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here, roll call.
Councilmember Wood. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Conrad Willoughby.
Here.
Councilmember Rich.
Here.
Mayor Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn. Councilmember Sorrell. Here. Councilmember Blue.
Here. Do I have a motion to excuse Councilwoman Donovan from the meeting? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, reading and consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting held on Monday, October 14, 2024. Are there any noted corrections or changes to the minutes as presented? If not, the minutes will stand approved. We're going to deviate slightly from the agenda. We're going to know from the War Memorial will give us a few minute update on what's going on at the War Memorial.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate you allowing me a few moments of your busy agenda to talk about what's going on over at our place. I really want to talk about the strategic plan and our forward-facing, forward-looking, and what we're doing there. We can go to the next slide. This has been a kind of a year-long process that took in a lot of input from folks. So our mission statement, I'm proud to say, is very much mirrors from 75 years ago when we first became an organization to honor those who served, enrich our community, and deliver exceptional experiences. Next slide. Really, we have we shaped it with long-term goals. There's about 6 long-term goals. I'm going to breeze through these, but really focus on a few that I feel are ones that you would want to know about. They're going to shape the next 5 to 10 years. The first one really is veteran focused. It is increasing visibility and impact of our veterans programming and support. This one, unfortunately for us, has really gotten underway, and if anybody has noticed, we've been doing an awful lot more than what we have in the past. So every month we're trying to have some kind of a veteran event. Today we just had 300 people for breakfast, so that's a really wonderful, great showing, absolutely beautiful service. That we did, but our Eternal Veterans Committee has, like every month, it's been something. It's either vets get together for camaraderie, we're not just going to the EFW hall, but come to our place now, have some coffee, have some donuts, and enjoy, each other. And then on the off months, we will have seminars, or we'll have learning sessions. Some of the things that we've got coming up on December 3rd. Tri-County navigators. There are myriad of services and resources open to veterans that they wouldn't even know about. These navigators are to help guide them. So we're proud to have veterans come. It's a free event to learn about different things that can help them. So we have that. Next year we're looking towards doing something for I think it's the last year of the commemoration of the Vietnam War, and so we're going to have a lot of programming all around that. And even things like just our veterans room and some of the artifacts we like to display and curate in different ways. So we've just got a lot of focus about things like reinvigorating things that are veterans. This one, I will skip. This one is rather lofty, but we've got little pieces and emotions to kind of get us there. This one's important to us too. This one is really safeguarding our state. This is a legacy that's a little gem in the community. And there really, I don't think it's got a major capital plan in place to really make sure that we've got the roof being examined every year, that the boilers are being checked out. And this equipment, these things are very, very old. Almost built in 1910. One of the things that's really kind of nice is having the proceeds from the gala that we had this past year are helping with some of these efforts. So our first thing is to seal the envelope of the roof, and then the water that's coming in, the filtration at the bottom. So we've had some fixes there, and then we're looking to renovate the first floor and starting with the French doors, taking off some of the burlap off the walls. So we've got chair moldings that don't really fit historically. Fix the ornate ceilings and paint those and make those presentables for the future. So super excited about doing all of that. And we want to bring people to the campus. One of the number one question that we hear is, when are you reopening the theater? And I'm happy to say that we've been seriously looking at this again. We are kind of dusting off and looking at a request for proposal to architects that can help us with design work. We're looking at theater, how many chairs, what is completely gutted, and we might need a mold study and things along that line, because it's you all know that how it works, and have to tell us to do that. So it will be very exciting to see what we can do, and we do have some initial money that's pledged towards it. carriage house is really unique, kind of a diamond in the rough at the edge of the property. Right now, that driver's training uses the first floor space. There are things we could do there. We could create a visitor center, create just more space and free up maybe some of the space in the house for the historic purposes of home. Carriage house for offices. So we're trying to develop plans for that. But really the idea is to, we had Summerfest, we brought legacy events back. Summerfest, we've got movies on the lawn. In the summertime, we've got candlelight concerts. So different things that just bringing people on. And it's amazing when I ask how many is this your first time that you've been here? We get a great show in hands. This is the first time they've been here. We want to create an experiential space for them, a third place that people can come to, and that they like it so much they're going to come back to the patrons and hopefully down the road, consumers. Of course, we want a great team. We're working on developing the culture and making the culture even better than before. I think we have an amazing team on there. Just continue to keep on building on what we have. And really, this is the last major slide. It really just talks about increasing revenue. Right? We want to increase revenue. We want to increase revenue because we have a lot of capital needs. If we have to replace the roof, for example, it's $1 million just. That probably starting costs. Again, boilers and different things that we know are problematic. So where does it come from when you're kind of at capacity and you've got weddings every weekend and you're doing everything you possibly can with events? That kind of pays for just the operational needs in the building, and that's about it. Not much to spare philanthropy. So we're sprucing up to really improve some, sponsorships, planned giving, and in fact, I just left there. We have a 20-foot Christmas tree on our property, and we've got sponsorships for that. So the community's just reached out in a grand way to sponsor the things that we're doing. I'm just thrilled that there's just so much support. And with that was just breezed through that. I mean, it doesn't seem like that was a whole year's worth of work to put that together, but it was. This would be on our website. There's some brochures that are there for you. If you've got any questions, certainly. Call me.
Thanks for coming. You guys do great service to our community. We're fortunate to have you in Farms. This beautiful building. Resource for our residents of Southeast Michigan. So thank you for all the work that you guys do. It's greatly appreciated, particularly for our vets and Memorial Day and all the events that we have throughout the year. Armed services.
Back to our roots. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. Oh yeah, he has a question.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. It's very good. Hope you come in again and give us some more updates in the future. Just kind of an FYI and maybe a request. Last Monday, I walked over to the War Memorial because the following day, Tuesday, was election day, and that's where we now do our elections. And I expected to see Derek's group kind of scrambling around, setting up all the tables and doing all the things that he needs to do. He's very busy. And instead, you had this fabulous senior expo thing going on there. Had all sorts of tables from Medicare to, places to take vacations. I mean, it was really super great, right? But it happened the day before the election, and Derek needs to get his stuff in there. So could I just make a request that maybe next year you give us a day, a buffer?
Oh, absolutely.
So
I think that, we learned sadly from okay, we got to make this better next year. So thank you for letting me know that.
Derek works a really hard schedule. If everybody doesn't know, he does. It's a terrific, job that he does. We all congratulate him. But it's hard enough to do all that without having him wake up at 4:30, try to come in and set all that stuff up. And you can probably understand. So if you could give the city a day that Derek could do that.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for letting us use that.
Thank you for letting us use this space.
You're welcome. And
See, that's going to get more people to vote because if they're for the expo, they get to vote at the same time.
Come back tomorrow.
Yeah, it's actually it's a 2-for-1 there. Come on.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, Maria?
What is your goal for your capital campaign? How much money?
What is the goal for the capital campaign? Well, as much money as possible. We don't necessarily have one. For the theater, we'd be looking for about $4 to $5 million. If we want specifically for that. For the historic house fund, it's just continuous to increase the endowment because the endowment then helps us operationally in capital. So there isn't necessarily unless we have a looking to set the theater.
Well, good luck to you, and I have to say kudos to your staff. Every event that I've been to, the staff has been fantastic.
They are wonderful. They make the one more. They truly do. Thank you for letting me know.
Yes? All right, thank you very much, Fran, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn as the city council and reconvene as the board of zoning appeals? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, Board of Zoning Appeals for A, consideration of a request for a variance for 470 Ballinger Road. Can the applicant and or representatives approach the podium and give us names and addresses, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and members of the zoning board of appeals.
Yes, backwards or no?
Yes. My name is Richard Linnell. On behalf of my client to my left, Mr. Robert Cahill. My address is 2804 Orchard Lake Road, Suite 203, Keego Harbor, Michigan 48320. I live in the city. My client to the left, Mr. Robert Cahill, is, as you may see from the application, 470 Ballinger.
All right, so tell us what your application, we've read it, so just give us like a summary about what you're asking us to do here for the variance.
Sure, we're asking for a dimensional variance as it relates to the rear of my client's property. For a little bit of background, and I should tell you, I have letters that I would like to enter into the record. I have 8 letters of support from adjacent homeowners. Derek. This would be the homeowners that flank. It's always a little challenging directionally, but to the immediate side, 2 to one side, 3 to the other, and 3 directly across the street. I would want to note it for the record that my client did make an attempt to speak to people who back up to his property. And he knocked on the door with his wife multiple times for the 4 homes that approximately abut his property, but was unable to make contact with them. The variance that is requested is a dimensional variance for lot coverage, specifically a variance to increase the lot coverage from 35% as stated in the zoning ordinance to 38%. The increase in coverage is related to, I guess what I might call an outdoor porch. It's a 3-sided patio, if you will. The rear of it is all open air. It actually contains a small kitchen for entertaining the family. My client is married, has 3 young children that live with him. The house he purchased in 2013. It was in need of a lot of use and to be functional for his family. And I will tell you, in fact, I have photographs, if I may, so you can all see what I'm talking about. And yep. The top picture is the house where my client purchased it. There's pictures of the rear of the property, but also the facade as it sits now. And I would draw your attention to the fact that he has done a substantial amount of work to the property, including revising the facade, at least in my opinion. I happen to just live a couple blocks away at one point in my life. It's not an overpowering facade, it's a very pleasant facade. The rear of the property is an extension of the house. And to be clear, my client obtained a permit, did work at the house, wanted to expand the scope of the permit, did not apply for it. There's nothing to mince words about. Did not apply for it, but it was under the belief in talking to his contractor, because he did not do the work himself, that to expand the scope was not necessarily of issue. He did understand that there were potential coverage issues. He did ask his architect they have an architect. And the architect advised him that the coverage would not be a concern, specifically that the improvements as made and as proposed, or at least considered by my client at the time, would be under the 35%. That was based on the zoning ordinance itself, which reads to the street. I do a fair amount of work like this, and typically what you see is for a measurement of determining what is the square footage of a lot for purposes of determining coverage is to the right of way. And I understand that in the zoning ordinance, it is defined, street is a defined term, and as an attorney, you understand defined terms, you pay attention to that. But as a lay person, it's not so clear. And although I certainly concede, we're obviously here for a variance, so we can see that it's over the 35%. What I would want to make clear is that my client did not appreciate that it was over 35%. He did not understand that. In fact, his architect made mention, and I was not involved at the time, his architect even made mention, you know, I was a little concerned, but I saw it says to the street, thinking like an average person. Again, I'm speaking for the architect, but an average person thinking the street being the physical street, the curb, the asphalt, etc., rather than the right of way. And therein lies the issue as to why it is above size. Now, again, I understand the work was done, at least part to the rear of the home, was done without that being included in the scope of the original permit. The house itself contained a 3-car garage, detached garage that was facing the street, so it was to the back. And although I certainly grant that this is greater in coverage than 35%, I would tell you, at least in some aspects, this is less obtrusive. You have something that's 1 story, and the garage was 1 story, but the garage was much further back. So, if you will, in my opinion, the house has been sort of shrunken in to the center. There was some concern about side setbacks. The setbacks are not an issue. My client has a survey that has demonstrated that. And I believe you'll hear that if you ask questions in the building department. And so, you know, what I would say is that this improvement, specifically the portion of the porch that exceeds the 35%, is not of a harm. And I understand the rules are rules, but this is not something that's obtrusive. This is not something that's an eyesore. This is a 3-sided porch. You know, if it didn't have a roof, or if the roof was cantilever, I don't believe you'd be talking now. I'm not an architect, I'm not going to pretend I am one, but my understanding is you can't cantilever roof really wouldn't count against the coverage. And so the idea that there was any intent behind this is not accurate, other than the intent was thinking I'm complying. I've been to it, it's an open air porch, like I said, the intent is to finish the backyard. He has support of his neighbors. And we would ask that you consider this, and we understand variances are not to be given lightly, that the hardship is not to be self-created, and I could understand where, and if I were in your shoes, that I might say, well, Rick, I mean, he did it, I mean, he built it. I mean, how's that not self-created? Again, I appreciate that, but what I'd say is that it wasn't done with intent. It was done without a full appreciation and understanding. And although certainly it would have been much better had he applied for a permit in advance of making any improvements, he did apply for a permit. Again, it did not consider this part. This was not in scope. That wasn't by design. And so I would ask you to grant a variance based on these circumstances.
Right, questions from the board? Left?
Mr. Linnell, thank you very much for coming, and Mr. Cahill, thank you. A couple of questions from me. I'm a little confused, I guess. Generally, it strikes me that the practical difficulty here that you're describing is essentially ignorance of the law, ignorance of the zoning ordinance. You thought that it was not something that you thought it was something that was covered in the initial permits, not, and so there was some confusion on that. So I can understand that as your claim. Does your client acknowledge that the city repeatedly tried to contact him throughout the summer on this issue?
So let me answer your question first. Yes, my client would acknowledge that Mr. Baca, and maybe others, I'm not aware, but it could be others, but that there was an effort to make contact with my client. He may have been slow on the uptake, but he has done everything. He hasn't made any more improvements. He hasn't expanded the improvements. He hasn't done anything. Not to dismiss that in hindsight, he certainly should have been more responsive. But there was no effort to get away, no effort to, hey, if I don't talk about it, maybe they'll stop talking about it. He's not under that impression. And I would just want to clarify, Mr. Wood, we understand clearly that the porch in the back was not part of the scope of the original permit. Don't want to pretend to say that we thought that was part of the scope, and we did not. But my only point was that he had pulled a permit, so he certainly wasn't thinking he was going to do work without a permit. He did expand the scope without expanding the scope of the permit, we can see.
Well, yeah, the initial permit was for the facade that you referred to.
The initial permit had to do with the house itself, the second story dormer. I know there are other additional to the large points.
All right, well,
Second first.
I guess my question is how does this, the fact that your client was contacted by Matt and others for several months, according to Matt's letter here, how does this square with the ignorance defense that you're claiming? How can he claim ignorance of the law when Matt has done his very best and others here at the city to alert you to the problems?
Well, to be clear, if I sound critical of Mr. Baca, I'm not intending to. What I would say is that the improvements that we're talking about that were here before you today, those were already made. And so it wasn't as though my client was ignoring Mr. Baca and continuing to make improvements. They were already made. And I certainly would say that you should have responded more quickly, but that would not have changed the circumstances. My client just shared with me, one of the concerns was quite honestly cost. The costs were a little bit greater than he thought. He knew he needed a survey, he understood that, and it took him a little while to get the money together. Now, he should have approached Mr. Baca and said as much, or we would concede that, and been clear. I understand what I need to do. I just need a little more time from an economic standpoint. That would have been the proper way to respond to Mr. Baca. But again, no work was done as though, hey, I didn't hear you, so I need to keep going. The work had already been completed before Mr. Baca had contacted my client.
So in your view, would your client have reduced the dimensions had he spoken to Matt and complied with the ordinance?
If my client understood in advance of construction,
right.
Well, I can't speak for my client, I'll let him, but I would say he would have A, reduced the size, or B, approached you and sought a variance to build what is now currently there. So he certainly, if he understood that, he would have done one or the other.
Last question. Did you inform the client that fines of up to $500 a day are allowed by our ordinance to penalize after the fact permits?
He is aware of these costs. Certainly, it's not what he set out to do, but he is now in the situation trying to make the best of it.
Thank you.
Wait, Matt, can you just run us through a quick timeline? I know some of it was there, but can you tell us what the original permit allowed?
The original permit was basically for a dormer, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
to the front of the house. That was
That's what you
issued,
said, all right.
yeah, that was issued a few years, maybe 2020, I think.
So then everything behind the house, no question.
Was not included with the initial application for that.
John, do you have a question? I do. Thank you. Mr. Liddell, thank you, Mr. Cahill, thank you very much. I'll say at the outset, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do or how I'm gonna vote. But as a condition 20 vote, I will be asking that the motion include a fine of at least $5,000. am deeply, deeply troubled about anyone who comes before our council and our building department. In this small city, we do our best to communicate with residents timely. We expect residents to communicate with us timely, especially when things like this are happening behind the scenes. And I do have a couple of questions. I'm curious, and I may have answered it, Mr. Linnell. I don't want to obviously know of any communications you had with your client, but were you counsel of record for Mr. Cahill when the original building permit was issued for the dormer work?
I was not, Mr. Cahill did not have counsel at that time. I would let my client, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I was only contacted subsequent to Mr. Vaca contacting him and him understanding the issue as it relates to the allegation that he was covering in excess of 35%.
When you say there were coverage issues, I appreciate your very carefully chosen wording. In my opinion, you said there's substantial work to property. Is it your client's position that he didn't know in his heart that an amended building permit was needed when the scope of that work greatly exceeded what he originally applied for through the city of Grosse Pointe Farms? Is that honestly your position? He had no idea.
Well, I don't know if I'd say no idea. My client specifically addressed this with his builder. And the builder said, you already have a permit. To expand the scope is not an issue. I, as somebody that's worked for a developer and built homes, I hear that and I say to myself, how could someone say that?
Yeah.
But I do understand that based on my practice of law, that is not necessarily the most unusual thing to happen. And so I certainly can appreciate the question, but I will tell you, my client did not do this intentionally. And I he's here, we can address you, but this is not one of those things like, well, I'll just do it and then maybe we'll forget about it. That's not how cities work. That's not how Grosse Pointe Farms work. That would be an unbelievably naive thought to have. And I can tell you, I've got to know my client a bit, and he certainly is sorry for what happened and would like to make the best of it. But the idea that it was done intentionally with the idea of asking for forgiveness afterwards, that would not be a correct statement in this situation.
And finally, you obviously know as an attorney in your client's position, God forbid something would happen out there with no permit, with no inspections by either the builder or by the city, so to speak, or if the city knew about something and turned a blind eye to her, you'd be representing your client, Mr. Burgess would be representing our city in a completely different case. And something completely different.
And I'm sorry.
No, and did your client, finally, my question is, did your client approach his insurance company to get additional coverage after this newest build out was completed? Did he notify his insurance carrier of that additional work, please?
Yes, if I understand the question correctly, he has advised his homeowner's insurance agent of the improvements that are made to the home.
I stand by my previous statement. I would urge council that we impose a significant fine as a condition, which would be consistent with our position in at least one other case, I think within the last 12 months, involving a very similar circumstance. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming, although I at some point would love to hear from the homeowner himself. There has to be some consequences where you have a situation, ignorance of the law. Particularly in a small community like Grosse Pointe Farms, where we're very serious about our zoning and variances and application of that. So much so that we, as you know, Mr. Lindell, right?
Lindell,
excuse me. As you know, we have a planning consultant that looks at all of our things. And if you went through some of the materials here, you would realize that we take so many of these variances very seriously because it sets a precedent. if we just say, okay, without any repercussions to you, let's just stop somewhere else. You're putting down an addition to the house, maybe not get a permit, maybe go beyond without getting a variance. So you have to understand why this is a serious matter, and I am in support of my councilman Galuli, as far as there has to be some recriminations with this, and fines need to be in order. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If I may, I appreciate the seriousness of the municipality and all municipalities, planning commissions. I appear before them regularly. As I said earlier, I was not involved. And I'm a former resident of Farmers before we moved to the city. And I can only tell you, if I had the opportunity to speak to my client, I would have told him, and based on my dealings with my client would have said, I had no idea. I understand. And I'm not saying that lessens the seriousness of it, but I do appreciate what you're saying.
Any other questions from the board?
This is more of a question for Matt. In the description, it says, and maybe you can answer it, it says sometime prior to November 2022 is when this was done. And then the citation wasn't issued until June 24th. When did there start to be some discussion about just how long of that was that process?
I think my first contact with Mr. Cahill was in December of 23.
So we're talking about a good 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and he did, there was some dialogue, as I stated in my memo. So at one point, he sent me the survey, I informed him for his site plan. That's when I told him that your property line is not at the curb, it's at the sidewalk, generally. And at that point, it looked like he needed 2 variances, and he said, I don't think I need the rear setback variance, I'd like to get a survey to clarify that. I said, that's fine, and then there was, some delays and some back and forth, and eventually, when I just was not getting the information I was looking for, I finally issued the citation.
And I can certainly understand, just as a practical matter, contractor says something to you about, hey, this is gonna be fine, and you might honestly think, okay, I said it was fine, they're the experienced one, I get it. But I will say, my concerns are with the lack of inspections, to Councilmember Galluli's point. We don't just do inspections because we want to, we do it because it's about the safety of our residents. And that's what makes me most concerned about this. And I'll just note it, $500 a day for 730 days, that would be $365,000. So $5,000 seems like a pretty steep thing, but compared to $365,000, it's a drop in the bucket.
If I may, and I'm guessing it's in the package information that you received, my client has applied for a permit. I am not a builder, although I've been involved in construction, but I'm just a lawyer. But I believe that the construction is of such a nature that it can be easily seen. But quite honestly, if there are things that can't be seen, especially mechanicals, HVAC, electrical, etc., my client will, at least is what I've seen in the past, is they will remove sections of drywall or sections of paneling to allow for those inspections if they're deemed necessary. So we definitely appreciate what you said.
Who is / was the builder?
Yes, the design to build.
Okay, were they out of?
I believe he's out of Southfield.
Do you have any history with this builder that you remember?
I'm not familiar with him.
What's his name? Design to build?
Designed to build LLC out of
Okay.
Southfield.
So I'm gonna ask that you give the name, address, and whoever your contact was to Mr. Baca after tonight, by tomorrow morning, noon. I think the lawyer should talk to them, because what I'm sensing here is that you need 5 votes out of the 6 of us to get this passed. And I'm hearing that you have 5 votes that are gonna, 6, maybe they'll give it to you, that they're gonna find it. So I think that your choice is to go after your contractor, who give you horrific advice. They are in the business, and you should ask them to repay you for this. But I also want to make sure that if they ever try to build something in our city again, that we know when they're coming, and we know what they did. So, because that is not cricket, and we don't appreciate that in our community for all the reasons that this board has expressed. So your lawyer did a yeoman's-like job explaining misunderstandings and what happened here. But I think you have a sense of what's happening here with this board. Any other questions for the applicant before we go to public comment? Nope. All right, give us 2 seconds. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak on this item, please? Seeing nobody in the public, public comment is closed. What is the pleasure of the zoning board? Mr. Wood.
I have a motion, and prior to reading the motion, I'm going to say that I'm going to put aside the issue of ignorance of laws is no excuse, and I'm going to state a practical difficulty that I believe I understood you to say. So we'll take that approach here. I move that the appeal by Mr. Robert Cahill for the property located at 470 Bellinger, requesting an after-the-fact variance for the construction of an addition of an accessory building, which is a shed, be approved, therefore providing an additional 3% or 204 square feet of maximum lot coverage. The addition has been substantially completed at this time. Approval of this variance request is based upon review of the applicant's construction plans dated January 17th of this year, the applicant's zoning board of appeals application dated October 11th of this year, a legal brief by Mr. Richard Linnell dated October 11th, 2024, review of memo from Matt Baca dated November 11th, review of a letter from McKenna dated November 1st, and the applicant's testimony at today's hearing. Practical difficulty exists in that it would no longer be feasible to reduce the dimensions of completed structure in order to eliminate 3% off the total lot coverage. Practical difficulty is not therefore self-created, since the applicant claims he would have reduced the dimensions had he not made the original measuring mistake. We also find that the addition and shed do not negatively impact the adjacent properties or the character of the block. Many homes in the surrounding area have additions similar to this one. Granting this variance would not confer rights on this property unavailable to similarly situated properties. The materials and design of the addition and the shed appear to be harmonious with the existing house and the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The variance will not produce an increased population density, nor will it require additional government resources beyond previous and planned conditions. We further find that the zoning ordinance requires the issuance of a building permit before an existing structure may be enlarged or otherwise altered. A person who moves forward with a construction project without first securing a building permit is in clear violation of the ordinance. Such violation is particularly egregious when the alteration or enlargement is out of conformity with the zoning requirements in the applicable district, because the zoning board of appeals might have denied a requested variance or might have required a modified structure or possibly the imposition of other conditions. When an applicant commences work before a variance is requested, the discretion of the zoning board of appeals and accordingly sensible land planning is compromised. Moving forward without the issuance of a building permit also causes the expenditure of additional city resources, including building department inspections that are hampered by partial construction, the need to review architectural plans and construction drawings after the fact, and consideration of ordinance violations and penalties requiring involvement by administrative and legal staff. In this case, we're told that staff has spent a considerable amount of time communicating with the resident regarding various aspects of the project, including lot coverage violations. Zoning ordinance violations are misdemeanors punishable by a fine of $500 per day once the city becomes aware of the violation. Each day that the violation continues is considered a separate violation. In this instance, because of the extra time and city resources incurred, and because the applicant has not provided a reasonable justification for not obtaining a building permit, we find that a fine administered by the administration of $5,000 is warranted. A building permit will be issued following payment of related permit fees and the foregoing fine. Following permit issuance, the applicant will allow city staff to inspect all new construction and any associated electrical, plumbing, or mechanical work. And that's my motion.
Can I offer a friendly amendment that we had letters of the neighbors in support and no letters of objection?
Okay, there were letters that were in support of the project, but no letters of objection. So,
Valid motion?
Yes.
Okay, do I have support? Comments or support? Do I have support?
Excellent.
Okay, Derek, roll call?
Councilmember Wood,
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Conrad.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Mayor Barros.
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan. Councilmember Phillips.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Took me that long to get it. Thank you, Mayor, and I will have the name of the builder, the LLC, the contact and address information to Mr. Baca tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4B, consideration of request for a variance for 117 Mapleton Road. Will representative and/or the applicant please approach the podium? Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Bruce Nichols, and I'm appearing on behalf of Dr. Panos, who's the petitioner, Pantos, who's the petitioner in this matter. Just to kind of speed things along, I've heard the transcript, and that's everything there is to read on this thing.
We're very familiar with this.
Yeah, I know you are.
So you know the questions we have,
We
so
can probably keep this under 2 hours.
go
So-
right at it.
All right, what I had planned to do is, first, I'm gonna have Bruce Torres, who's going to explain the dimensional variances requested. They're very minimal, he's gonna have the prints tell you the whole thing. I think I'll let him do that first, and then I wanna talk about the house and the practical,
Perfect.
okay? You step forward. Bruce Torres, he's the designer in this matter.
Hello, council members, Matt, and everybody else. I was not here for any of the first.
Full name and address.
I'm sorry, my name is Bruce Charette, 850 Riverbank Street, Wyandotte, Michigan, south of Detroit.
Yep.
I was not here for any of the first 2 meetings, but I was here at the very beginning when I first met Dr. Pentos. And I was told to put together a drawing for an addition off the back of this house at 117 Mapleton. The original design was a 2-story, 20 feet wide, I think it was 14 feet deep. I knew at the time when I took my field measurements, which is the measurements that I took with a tape measure to the fence line on the right. I knew when I was doing this drawing that there's no way that he's gonna meet lot coverage. There's no way that he's going to meet rear yard setback. I'm pretty sure I told the builder these things, but they wanted to proceed. And I put together drawings of the actual whole house. I measured the whole house, first floor, second floor. I put together floor plans of the addition. I drew a site plan, pretty detailed, along with all my measurements. But I never approached you at the very first meeting, I believe, which was probably May of 2024.
Yeah.
And it was tabled, another one, and it was tabled.
Yeah.
It was tabled because there was not enough information and there was a lot of lack of communication. I think the second one ended up the same way. Actually, the second one, I was told that after that one, to reduce it to a 1-story addition, no longer to be a 2-story. So I said, okay, fine, it's already drawn. It doesn't take me that long to take a 2-story addition of the same house and reduce it to a 1-story. So that's what I did the second time. And I can't remember the dates without looking at some of these notes. The second ZBA date, which would probably have been in July,
Don't worry about this, don't worry about the specifics.
The second one was another lack of communication. It's very hard to understand what Dr. Pentos's wants and needs are. He doesn't understand the actual lot coverage dimensions, the rear yard setback, the minimum side yard of 4 feet. So when I did the revised, the third revisions would be drawing the addition, the size of the existing deck that's off the back of that house. The existing deck was 14.5 feet wide and it was 10.4 feet deep. So what I did was I revised the addition again to match the dimensions of that existing one level deck off the back of the house. Nothing changed regarding the site plan itself. What did change was when I drew it as an addition off the back of the house, my rear yard setback ended up encroaching on the minimum of 35 feet. I believe it was 35 feet. So that was one ZB, that was one variance he needed. The other variance was lot coverage of 35%, and I think it says that I'm 1% over. From reading some of these notes, from McKenna and Associates and from Matt, I believe it says that it also requires a 3.8% variance on the lot coverage to 38.8%, or 1,259.86 square feet. So I'm asking for 3.8% variance on lot coverage. The minimum side yard of 4.0, I measured from his house to the fence at 3'9". Now, this is not a true survey. He did have a survey done in November of 2023. And that survey shows the same dimension on the right side of the house at 3.9 inches. So I'm asking for 3-inch variance on the right side of the 4-foot minimum side yard. I think that's, and the rear yard variance, the lot coverage of 38%, and the 4-foot minimum on the right side. That's what I'm asking for.
The two variances are exactly the depth, 7 feet, I believe.
Oh, I'm asking, the rear yard setback. I think it's fine right here. I'm asking for 7.2 feet. Here it is.
What's the side?
The rear yard setback, I can't find it right here, is 35 minimum.
30.
I'm sorry, 30, and I'm at 28. 28.4. So I'm asking for 7.3 feet of rear yard setback. I'm asking
I'm gonna
for,
call time out here. These are so far off of what McKenna's got in the report. What are we dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, you have 22.8 3/4 proposed.
Okay, I'm sorry,
The most
I read-
recent plan, so that would be a 7-foot variance, 7
Yeah.
foot and 2 1/4 inches.
yeah, McKenna's plan details. Resulting in addition would be, the setback would be 22 feet, 8 3/4 inches. 30. Supposed to be 30 feet.
And then I got lot coverage, that's only 1%.
1%. Yeah, I don't know, right here, I don't know who wrote this up. BZA attachment, where it talks about, it also requires a 3.8% variance on the lot coverage to 38.8. I don't know who wrote.
I'm sure that is the bottom there. I don't know what that is. So,
Okay,
let's cross it.
so I'm asking for the 3 inches on the right side. The 7 feet for the rear yard setback. And I'm asking for 1% on lot coverage.
All right. Got it.
Okay,
And
got it?
that's from McKenna.
That's right.
Okay, so I should just, I don't know, this other stuff just isn't matching what McKenna.
Take your counsel advice and go with McKenna. Counsel.
Yeah.
All right, good. Thank you. So we're looking for roughly 7 feet and about 3 inches. So, my readings of what was going on around here and looking at the minutes is that one of the things you're concerned about is practical difficulty. The house is, of course, a 100-year-old house. It's functionally obsolescent. It's the smallest house in the street, may very well be the smallest house in Grosse Pointe Farms. It has, it was built in 1924, it's virtually functionally obsolescent. It, a tiny kitchen, there was no home entertainment centers in 1924. Most people gave a radio. There was no concept of a home office or working at home, and an increased need for privacy. One telephone in the house. This is an enhancement to housing stock in that area. On Mapleton, I walked the entire street today because one of the questions I read from the minutes and I heard in the video is that the practical difficulty wasn't the food, and that there was a question whether or not this expansion had been allowed into the properties. And if I may present this, Mr. Burgess, would you pass this down? These are, first of all, photographs of 11 homes, which are the exact same size lot. And all of those homes are bigger than the homes, than Mr. Panos or Dr. Panos' property. They all have additions. If you look in the back of them, every one of them, the only one that doesn't is the one at 138 Mapleton. It looks like one of the first ones ever built there. All of them are in violation. All of them are oversized for the lot. So right from the get-go, we've got a piece of property that when the ordinance was passed, the zoning ordinance is already in violation. So, okay, so we can't expand anything or do anything without a variance. So here today, we're asking that this house be converted into the 20th century or 21st century, I guess we should call it. So we do have the ability for people not to just have to live in the living room, not even with a tiny kitchen. He's just looking for an extension on the back. There will be no increased population. It's the same number of bedrooms, same parking, everything is the same. It's in harmony with the many photographs I showed you of the other properties that have already enjoyed this expansion over the years. I've checked all the field sheets. My information on those photographs is all I took this morning. That's why the one thing I have was all the check marks. I walked the whole block today. A substantial justice will be done in allowing the doctor to expand and improve this house. It's going to enhance the property values around the whole neighborhood. It's a beautiful little street. Some houses are in better shape than other ones, but for the most part, it's a very, very nice street. You know that everybody will speak to character. This is all in the back. It will not interfere with anything other than enhance the value, not only his property, but virtually everybody around. If there was a question about the view, and I don't know if that was the second floor, the photographs are in there. If you're looking for your view, this is not the Straits of Mackinac or a lakefront view. This is the back of Mapleton, and I have 3 photographs of it there. It's nothing but blunt walls, and that's what our petitioner has right now. So it's certainly not going to bother anybody else. In addition, there are, and I believe you already have that, so I won't beat it to death, and heard this probably 4 times. There's multiple numbers of people in support there. In fact, I have a letter addressed in to tell me please stop walking to the neighborhood getting letters of support. He virtually has a gazillion of them. I haven't heard any opposition yet. I'm certainly glad to respond to it. But other than that, we'd ask that the BZA act in accordance with the request of the petition to allow expansion of this house on this minimal basis. Any questions?
Mr. Moody, very briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Nichols, thank you very much. A small suggestion, if I may, with regard to enhancing the property of those immediately adjacent to this home on Mapleton. Kindly ask your client to keep the garbage out of the back, the pallets, the lawn-maintained construction debris off of the driveway. And speaking with neighbors, I know, and we raised it before, and it continued throughout the summer. That would go a long way.
And that's unacceptable. I agree.
Basic.
That's something that's
Basic.
I went over there and looked at it. I found some cinder blocks. There were some pallets.
I mean, exactly.
But it was
It's not appropriate, sir.
No, it's not a storage.
Thank you.
Building, I understand, it's not a building material
Been
story.
there for months.
Yes, okay, I will advise you.
Thank you.
What
questions?
Mr. Nichols. It's not the smallest house.
It isn't.
I've been inside the house. I know it very well. I knew it as a former renter. It was, so it's not. And as far as what this confusion has been all about was the initial proposal that came to us, which was nothing.
2 stories.
I think not
Not even
anything
the
as
same.
far as what we're looking at right now. So I think that there is, real concern because we've had many neighbors in here to discuss the initial one and then subsequent plans. But personally, I don't have any problem with this because I know that back porch and I know if that's going to be enclosed and that's the addition on it, then I think it will enhance the home. The tenant that I know that was there had a home office upstairs in addition to 2 bedrooms. So it's a small home, I understand that, but I think that maybe, again, if it can be reinforced to the good doctor, that we really need to take a look at some different things that are misplaced, namely the garbage.
So junk enough to
The
rot.
front part with those stones that come out and they've been gone, and then there's no grass at times. Or the grass is not cut. So if there can be a real urging on your part and others, to the good doctor that he needs to really take care
Well,
of.
certainly
and
understand.
have that attended to. Thank you.
And also we've addressed the drainage issue, I believe it was,
Right,
that's all
correct,
going on.
correct.
front.
Correct, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you.
I will say I drove by today, pick up the pallets, it looks cleaner than it had. By the way, Matt, somebody is storing like a deep fryer or some refrigerator unit on their lawn down the block. And I didn't grab the address, but it's on their driveway, so it's a big stainless steel, like, commercial something or other. Why people do this, I have no idea. So anyways, keep
Does
it
it look
clean.
like trash or is it?
It's back in the backyard. I don't know if it's hooked up or they're deep frying outside. I have no idea. It's not Thanksgiving, you do a turkey yet, but just it's storage, whatever. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Nichols.
you.
From the public, do we have any comments? All right, seeing none, public comment is closed. What is the pleasure of the board of zoning board?
I have a motion.
All right, bring it on.
I have worked on this motion many months.
Was it April, May, June, or July?
I can't remember when I started working on this. This is multiple iterations. All right. So I move that the appeals application received on September 11, 2024 from Dr. Theodore Pantos for the construction of an addition in the back of the home at 117 Mapleton be granted, thereby authorizing the issuance of a building permit to construct a 1-story addition, approximately 14 feet by 6 inches by 10 by 4. This addition would enlarge, and I should note here, I'm using the numbers that were in our documentation, so I just want to be clear here. This addition would enlarge an existing non-conforming structure and do so in such a way that would encroach 7 feet 3 inches into the rear yard setback. That's 22 feet 9 inches versus 30 feet, and exceed the maximum lot coverage by 1%, 36% versus a maximum of 35%, as required in the R1 residential district. To reach this decision, we have reviewed Mr. Matt Baca's memo dated October 14, 2024. The applicant's appeals application originally received on September 11, 2024. The detailed review of McKenna's from McKenna dated October 7, 2024. A letter from Dr. Pantos dated November 6, 2024, and comments from the applicant and the public tonight. Potential factual findings indicate that the strict application of the zoning ordinance would result in a practical difficulty for the user of the property due to the smaller lot sizes on Mapleton, making it difficult to meet the zoning ordinance's lot coverage and setback requirements and provide the adequate living space expected for modern single-family homes. The variance is in harmony with and serves the intent and purposes of the ordinance because 1, the proposed lot coverage represents a 1% variance in proportion to the requirement and would sit in the footprint of an existing deck. 2, the variance will not increase population density or change the amount of impervious surface on the lot, given that it would sit in the footprint of an existing deck. 3, the variance will not adversely affect the government services or district's single-family character. 4, the house following the addition will remain in harmony with the surrounding residents in the districts including numerous other homes on Mapleton with square footage increasing additions. The proposed variance meets the standard of Article 25. The variance will result in substantial justice being done because, one, the lots on Mapleton are among the smallest in Grosse Pointe Farms and do not meet the minimum R1 district requirements. Given the significantly smaller size, it is reasonable to expect it will be difficult to conform to the area and bulk requirements written in the context of larger lot areas, rendering the hardships associated with fulfilling the zoning requirements not self-created. According to a survey conducted by the applicant, the current square footage of 117 Mapleton, 1,280 square feet, is among the smallest on the street, approximately 4.5 smaller than the second smallest home, 125 Mapleton, and 39% smaller than the largest home, 60 Mapleton. Increasing the square footage of the home would keep in character with the rest of the neighborhood and improve the housing stock in the community. And three, the petitioner has worked to revise his proposal multiple times over the last 7 months to minimize the scope of variance requested and the impact on neighbors, including limiting the requested addition to a single floor. That is the long. That is comprehensive.
Whoa.
Do we have support?
Support.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Councilmember Wood,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Conrad Wilbur,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Mayor Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan, Councilmember Soroka,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Blumer.
Yes. All right. Motion carries. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Chiede di stesso. Άκουσε το σπίτι, πρέπει να είναι καθαρό έξω. Όχι το ξύλο μέσα που ήταν στο garage. Throw away. So, πρέπει να είναι καθαρό. Δεν πειράζει. Είπα μία. Κάντε μέρες. Σου είπα. Δεύτερη φορά που είσαι εδώ. Clean it, that's all, right? All right. Joshua. Yes.
He's on the best lawyer.
Yeah, there's so many words. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn as the Board of Zoning Appeals and to reconvene as the City Council? All, support?
Support.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have reconvened as the City Council. Item 5, consideration of a request to approve, a 1-year contract for property and liability insurance with Nickel and Sack. Mr. Reeside.
Yes, before you is a memo from our finance director, Tim Rowland, outlining the proposal for a continuation of insurance with Nickel and Sapp. No, it is slightly higher than we had anticipated. We anticipate it'll be $2,900 roughly over what we had budgeted. But I should also mention, as part of this approval, we are approving additional insurance for a judicial liability and a drone liability coverage. We recommend that those coverages be added to our policy. So in summary, we're requesting approval for 1-year renewal effective December 7th, 24th to December 7th of 25, for the amount of $429,023.
Any questions from council?
I have one, Mr. Mayor. Shane, we serve as far as our judicial body with both the shores and farms.
Yes.
Does the shore contribute to this cost?
So they have a different carrier, and so they would, but with that said, we have requested that the shores be added to our policy. So they would have coverage under our policy, and then in that case, if that's granted, we would split that cost of that coverage with Grosse Pointe Shores.
Thank you.
Very good.
Anybody else? Thanks Ed, for donating $3,000 of his salary to cover the overage. Any questions from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, public comment is closed. What's the pleasure of council? Mayor. I move to accept the modified renewal of our liability insurance program as recommended by the city manager. Do I hear support?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carries. All right, fabulous. Item 6, the consent agenda. Does anybody want to remove any of the items under the consent agenda for individual consideration?
Letter A, Louis.
Anything else? All right, do I have a motion to approve consent agenda items 6B and 6C?
So moved.
Support? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6A, schedule a public hearing for our next meeting on December 9 to consider amendments to code number 7-09, tennis courts and other sport courts. Mr. Wood.
Just a couple of, I think I'm on the wrong. I had some stuff written down. Oh, here it is. Can I make some textual changes?
So why don't I introduce this for 30 seconds,
Okay.
and then I think you can make a suggestion. What council has before it, and by the way, we're simply scheduling a public hearing for the December meeting. What you have before you is largely a continuation of our existing tennis court ordinance. However, if you look at the first page and carrying over to the second page of the draft ordinance, subsection 1B, as in boy, is new. And that's intended to address sport courts that are outdoors other than tennis courts. The motivation being recent complaints that we've received in Grosse Pointe Farms, in particular with respect to pickleball and noise and potential nuisance associated with that. So that's the motivation of this. There are other conforming language changes in other sections, but section 1B is the meat. With that, Lev, you can either introduce language this evening, and I can put something together before the December meeting, or we can cover it in December, your choice.
Well, these are really easy for you to accept or deny. It says, section 1, it's letter A, it says no person shall construct an outdoor tennis court. I'm suggesting to replace that with tennis courts and other sports courts. So we read, no person shall construct an outdoor tennis court and or other sport courts.
That's what B is.
That would be redundant with what we say in B.
The first sentence in B is the sport court version of A.
Okay, so then at the very, okay, that's fine. And then it says 200 feet, the last sentence there for section A, section 1A.
Yeah.
It says 200 feet. You mentioned it, pickleball, they're allowed. Should that be more?
Well, again, subsection A is our existing ordinance. That and the 200 feet is simply who receives notice if someone wants to put in a tennis court that's out of compliance with the zoning ordinance or the fence ordinance. The 200 feet referenced there, Lev, is not a setback. It's a who gets notice.
It's a notice, but because of how loud it is, I'm suggesting that pickleball is louder than tennis.
True.
So that you would make that instead of 200 feet, 300 feet.
That's what's in B. 300 feet.
All right. Okay, or on the other page. All right, and then I saw something else. Clay courts. It says letter B.
Yeah.
Subsection, is it I? For purposes hereof, outdoor sport court shall mean an outdoor surface pad I that incorporates an impervious surface. Some people love to play clay on courts on clay, or it's not clay, it's whatever they call it, the true court or something, or it's soft. It's not impervious.
Okay. Good point.
I got one.
Got one. So that's a normative question as to, whether you want to regulate that or not.
Could you just eliminate the distinction of pervious or impervious?
Yeah.
That would be- Just keep the broad definition. Yeah, okay.
Sure. That's all.
Bill, Ivan, it says here, under B, a service pad designed and permitted for vehicle access and parking such as a driveway shall not be deemed an outdoor sports court, merely because sporting apparatus is not limited to a basketball goal or hockey net, I'm not educated there on, please refer to. So, let me make this clear. So someone could set up on their driveway, as we've seen before. Or they've even done it in the street when it's not a real heavily traffic area. They set up in that, and they just do chalk, and they do pickleball, okay? Or they're having in their driveway, we've got basketball, I mean, I take a look at my lawn, and we've seen both. So if the question is that people are complaining about the noise, frankly, I think the argument can be made that a basketball thing that goes on can be just as noisy as a pickleball. I'm not quite sure this is.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. This item is just to put this
Oh,
on the
it's for
agenda
public hearing,
for
okay,
next
all right,
week, yeah.
okay.
I think some of this can be hashed out at that meeting, and I think we can all think of some concepts. To me, one of the primary issues of this is how much lot coverage is being utilized by these additional courts. So the middle of B, and so that's one of the key aspects I want everybody to think about over the next month is people are constructing sport courts, pickleball courts, whatever, and they're impervious, but it also creates an issue that they exceed what would normally be the lot coverage for any other structure that would be placed on people's backyards or front yards. So that's part of the theme here as well. So let's read this in earnest. We'll be on the agenda for next month, and obviously you can call Mr. Burgess with any questions as we go through.
Or shoot me an email, because as things like this come up, we can adjust the language before we get to December.
So what I'm looking for tonight is, do I have a motion to put this on the public agenda for the December meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have support? Support. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right. We have our reports in front of us, only one car stolen. Car was unlocked and the keys were left inside. Shocking. I woke up as a 5'8" mare this morning. Anyway, other business, Mr. Reeside.
The two items, I know many of you have privately presented their accolades to our city clerk for a well-run election, and just want to publicly acknowledge the great work that was done. We passed with a lot of changes, a lot of hours that were put into that, so we appreciate that. Secondly, I'm going to ask that city council meet after the regular meeting for a brief closed session to discuss the draft position of property.
We're not returning to public session.
No actual opinions.
Any other business from anybody else on council?
Just a quick update, tomorrow night, the foundation meets, it's the first meeting of our new year, and we're gonna be launching our capital campaign for next year. Bank balance is almost $500,000, which I believe 250 to 300 has been earmarked for the pool seed money. So it's, we're off and running with another situation there. And Lev and I are both on the pension boards, and we had our big meeting last week. And both funds are very well capitalized, and everything looks really, really good on both those funds. And Lev, you might want to add anything else on that?
No.
Okay.
I think you're gonna, I think that's an excellent thing for you to bring up, but I don't have anything else. I think you said it well.
Anybody else? All right, anybody in the public? All All right, well, thank you, everybody. We need a motion to adjourn the city council meeting and to convene in closed session to discuss real estate matters. All right, motion. Right. Derek, roll call.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Conrad Wilbur.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes.
Mayor Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan. Councilmember Soroka.
Yes.
Councilmember Bluey.
Yes. All right, thank you, everybody. Happy Veterans Day again. And enjoy winter.